Hey everyone, welcome to week 7. So this week is our second week of diving into James Baldwin and his book, The Fire Next Time. So this week you're actually starting the primary essay of The Fire Next Time. And as you're reading this essay, I want you to put at the forefront of your mind the importance of understanding and validating other people's experiences. Now, it's a mature aspect of just growing and learning to realize that you don't necessarily have to agree with someone in order to validate their experiences. So when we're reading Baldwin and seeing his own social context of being a black man growing up in the civil rights era, or not necessarily growing up, but writing during the midst of the civil rights era, we can understand that that social context would produce particular ideas and actions in ways that we don't really deal with as much in the year 2022 or whenever it is you're watching this video. So especially when I think about how it intersects with my own identity, I am a white person living in Texas in 2022, and that would provide me a very different set of experiences than James Baldwin. So when I'm reading his ideas, it's important for me to empathize as best as I can to what it's like to feel marginalized and outcast to the best of my abilities, and understand that those experiences have created these particular ideas and writings. And that's important because in college, in any type of college classroom, in anything that you kind of indulge in that has to do with critical thinking outside of the classroom, it's important for us to try to understand someone else's experiences and where they're coming from. That is not to say you're setting aside your ideas, your opinions, your beliefs, your faith. You're not setting those things aside. What you're trying to do is just imagine of what it's like to be a particularly different person, which I think is extremely important when it comes to talking about American literature, because this is a bit of a spoiler here. America is pretty big, right? So it's very different than when we're discussing something like the cultural influences of the literature of a smaller country, even something like the United Kingdom, which obviously is massive with a completely diverse array of cultural backgrounds. America is massive, right? It's a melting pot of all these different cultures, ideas, philosophies, faiths. So understand that when you're coming to the table here. So if you are deeply offended by a particular idea that comes up in this reading, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being uncomfortable, being upset, or even being offended by a particular idea. And in fact, I would argue that if you don't feel that way in a college classroom, then your college classroom probably didn't push you enough, or at least in humanities classrooms. So if something does make you feel uncomfortable, just sit with it, think about it critically, and understand that your writings that you're submitting to me, you can investigate and explore those ideas in a respectful way. If you think it's the worst thing you've ever heard, well, communicate that in your writing in a respectful way. Hopefully, by now, I've been able to give you feedback on your writing in such a way that you feel safe to kind of explore those ideas. So, yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm going for here. Just don't let ideas kind of derail you. Just sit with them, and if they bother you, ask why they bother you, or if they intrigue you, ask yourself why they intrigue you. Just feel free to explore and mess around and sit with these ideas without having them feel like they're derailing your entire ethos of life. Now, with that in mind, Baldwin goes into a lot of his background into the Christian church and how his experiences with race and racism derailed his faith in the Christian church. So there are some elements in here that students in the past have taken issue with. They disagree with it firmly and strongly. And you know what? That's okay. That's all right. But understand, once again, try to put yourself in Baldwin's shoes and say, dang, if I went through those experiences, I'm not sure how I would react. Or you could even say, I hope I would have reacted differently, but I can imagine why another person would react in that way. And that's what this is about. Understanding the breadth and depth of not just American life, but the human experience, right? Okay. So that's pretty much what's going on here. So as you're diving into The Fire Next Time, this is the PDF version right here. This is the ebook file if you're using iBooks, or if you're using the Nook app, those work really well. So the name of the essay is called Letter from a Region of My Mind. Now, it's a little bit different depending on what edition you're using. So the PDF has the line break here really well, and I'm pretty sure the ebook file does too. So once you start reading that first page in it, you're going to get to page 57-ish. And I know that's true in the PDF file. Ebook files are different because the pages can vary. And there's a line break. I have to sneeze. Hold on. Allergies. So there's a line break on page 57. And after the line break, the next part will start, I had heard a great deal. So I had heard a great deal. That is the section that starts the next week's reading. So once you get to that part, just stop, okay? All right, hopefully that's understandable. Now, I'd also like for you to read the background information that's on this link. It'll give you a little bit more biographical information about Baldwin, even though I know you watched the documentary last week, and some more specific background information about the text itself. Also, it's from Lit Charts, which I've given to y'all before when we were analyzing different aspects of Flannery O'Connor. And Lit Charts is great for looking at things like chapter summaries or specific quotes. So if in the course of reading the text this week you're feeling a little bit lost, do not hesitate to use that link to kind of give you a little bit of momentum in your understanding of it. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And your assignment is pretty much just like all the other assignments we've had. It's asking specific questions that I want you to answer. What argument does the text make regarding religion and race? And there are very specific arguments that Baldwin's making here. Give me your interpretation of them. What do you feel like the argument is so far? And that might change throughout the course of you reading and finishing the book, and that's fine. How do Baldwin's experiences help us understand America and what it means to be an American? And I think this is important. So last week we were getting perspectives on what it means to be a Southern person of faith or even a Southern woman of faith. And this week we're getting a very different perspective of what it means to be a person of color, specifically a person of color living in the midst of extreme racial turmoil, right? And then lastly, consider your own identity, culture, beliefs, background, and respond to the text. Do you agree with Baldwin's arguments and ideas? Why or why not? And you are free to disagree. You are free to disagree as long as you do so respectfully and use evidence. Discuss the text specifically, all right? This text should intrigue you, right? It should either get you fist pumping or it should make you really uncomfortable, one or the other, right? So in my opinion, in classes past, it's a really easy text to write about because it provokes emotion within us in a very good way. Okay. All right. As always, this is what you need to do to earn full credit. Make sure that you're looking at the comments that I'm giving you from past assignments to let you know how you can improve your text. And on a final note that I just want to bring up real quick, on the projects that were submitted last week, a vast majority of them were really, really good. I had quite the issue with plagiarism this time around, which surprised me. So for those of you that are not familiar with what plagiarism is, it's when you are taking ideas and written text from another person and you're using those ideas and text as your own. There's nothing wrong with borrowing ideas or text from other people as long as you are giving attribution. So if you're giving me a link in a works cited page in an in-text citation of the words of another person, that's fine. Even if you're paraphrasing or summarizing something that you've read, that's fine too. Just make sure that you're giving credit where credit is due. The problem is when you use someone else's ideas and specifically their own words, and you do not give me an in-text citation, which is last name of the author inside the text, or a works cited citation. That is plagiarism. And usually for outside sources in an essay, the sweet spot is about 25% to 33%. And if I'm getting into like 35, 36, I'm definitely a little concerned, but there are a lot of essays where I would get something between 60% and even 80 to 100% of unoriginal work. And that's plagiarism. So essentially that is considered an extreme violation of the academic code of conduct, and TCC and other institutions have very severe consequences for actions like that. It can't be done. So I understand we're in kind of this crazy world, and that was our first major assignment. So I'm extending grace. If you were one of the persons that did plagiarize, I'm allowing you to change your submission, and I can help you out with the grade there so it doesn't just completely devastate your average. But just understand, not just in this class, but in every class, That cannot happen. It just cannot happen. If you're using words from someone, you have to attribute them. Okay? Just make sure that you settle it in your mind. That's something you'll do from here on out. Now, also something that'll help you out too. If you're borrowing words from other people, do it from credible sources that you find on the TCC library database or any other university or college's databases that you can access through the library, or from like credible journalistic websites or artistic websites that you recognize. Don't get them from like GradeSaver, and don't use a Wikipedia page as the site that you're quoting from. If you want to use Wikipedia, amazing. Wikipedia is a great starting place, but look at all the links that they have toward the end, right? For example, if I did something like, if we go to Wikipedia and did James Baldwin, it's okay to start here if you're doing a research on James Baldwin. There's nothing wrong with that. But instead of quoting something from the Wikipedia page, what you would want to do is find the link, these little things right here, where they come from, and cite those particular citations, right? That's what you want to look for right there. Don't cite the actual Wikipedia page. Go to those sites and let me know the source of those information. Sources of those bits of information, because Wikipedia is just kind of housing all of those bits. Okay, so I'm not mad, right? I understand life's tough, and really what I'm learning more and more is that throughout high school, a lot of institutions and even in college are just not teaching students what plagiarism is. And so hopefully by now, especially now that I've given you all this little mini talk, you have a deeper understanding of what it is that you cannot do when you're submitting writing. And understand that when you submit something to Canvas, it's going to go through a plagiarism software check. So I'm able to see what sources you use, even if it was from something like GradeSavers or freepapers.com, right? I mean, I can see what's going on. So, and not every assignment you do in college is going to have an attachment to that software checking system, but just make up your mind now that that's not something that you do, because that can get you in a lot of sticky situations down the line. So just resolve to not do it ever again. If you had comments saying your essay was plagiarized, just redo it and submit it, and we'll move on. Okay? All right. Y'all are wonderful. Have a great week. Goodbye.